So if you have not silenced your phones, please silence your phones, or we will make you answer them and dictate that call with the recording. And everybody at PASS TV will know about it too, which will be great. If you're not part of PASS, I always talk about this because I do come from the Oracle world. I'm an Oracle DBA, Linux DBA for too many years. And when anybody had to go to the Oracle sessions that were cross-platform like myself, I always felt bad because I'm like, yeah, come over to our Oracle events and we'll charge you lots of money. And the PASS events, it was like PASS.org was free, and your local SQL Server events were free, and these virtual events that are free. Take advantage of that. I mean, it's pretty awesome. And if you're not contributing, really consider it too. I believe in giving back to the community. Hey, I'm a remote president. If I can do it, any of you guys can. Seriously, they have to keep me in line. It's terrible. So if you have not become part of your community, search it out, find it, see how you can do more. If you don't know who I am, because I am much better known on the Oracle side than I am on the Microsoft side, I even work for Microsoft, so it's kind of sad right now. My name is Kellen Put-Von-Gorman, or Kellen Gorman. I am an Azure Data Platform Architect. What I'm mostly known for right now at Microsoft is I move Oracle databases onto VMs, bare metal, all in Linux, because we don't run Oracle on Windows. It's just ugly. It goes bad. It just goes bad. But that's what I do most of. I was hired to take over Patrick LeBlanc's old position, so I came to Microsoft to learn analytics and AI. I was like, yay, I'm going to learn something new. And then 4 months in, they found out I knew Oracle, and it just went crashed from there. But I have a lot of fun with it, and it has gotten so busy that my husband's about to start at Microsoft in 3 weeks to take all the work I can't do. That's where we're going. That's how bad it's gotten. But I love it because I always loved Oracle databases. I have no problem with it. I love being multi-platform, and found out that a lot of these databases, they needed to keep on it. And I'm like, I can build it on bare metal, no problem at all. But I'm a blogger and a speaker and an author. I've got a couple books out on the A-Press one, and I think I've got the SQL Server 2019 book I wrote the Linux chapter on, and building Azure VMs. That'll be out in another 3 weeks with Buck Woody and a couple other wonderful, wonderful people. And I am DBA Kevlar. So do any of you follow me on Twitter? I'm sorry. That's all I got to say on that. I'm really, really sorry because I know I'm noisy. So if you're not following this track, but I know some of you are, thank you so much. The first session was yesterday with Hamish. He gave you an introduction to Linux. I am taking you through Bash scripting. And we'll talk a little bit about what this session is. I don't want any confusion in it, so I'll talk about that in a minute. And tomorrow, Randolph. We got Randolph in the room. Randolph's in the house. He's going to do advanced monitoring and management tools for SQL Server on Linux, which is extremely important for you to take care of those systems because, of course, we took a lot of stuff away from you when we put it on Linux. Darn us. So what this session is, it's to teach you about how to write a basic and hopefully proper Bash script. For me, when I started going out to export the templates, how many of you have Azure accounts? How many of you tried to export the templates? Oh, wow. Wow. Seriously?
Tried or succeeded.
Okay. How many of you tried and it failed? Oh, I've got a couple of the, okay, yeah. And I understand that, there's 2 formats that it does now, which is pretty much PowerShell, and it says CLI. It's not the CLI, okay? A command line interface, you open it up and you look at it, it's a Bash script, okay? And you'll hear Bash is for Born Again Shell and everything else. Bash is actually an acronym for it. It is a scripting language, and it's done on the command line interface. So that drives me crazy, and I wish they would change it. Someday, I know, I ask for a lot of stuff. But this is to make it really easy for you to do a lot. I am not real good in the portal. I get in there, I'm missing 50% of my visual field. We were kind of talking earlier about strokes and everything. It's the one thing that's left over is I don't see anything. So I'll be sitting there looking at the portal screen, and I'm like, just give me the command line. Just let me type something. So I build everything in Bash. I'm known in my group for taking our 10-week deployment and turning it down to 10 minutes of Bash scripts with a little tiny bit of JSON, because I think we JSON ourselves to death. And it's really quick with Bash, with Azure CLI, and bam, I knock everything out, the infrastructure, the servers, databases, the objects, the data, whatever they need, bam, bam, bam. And it's just glorious. They love it. So now they're going to put a portal on top of it, of course, a UI. I won't be able to find anything again, but that's what they're going to do. So there is a cheat sheet for this that's out there on that GitHub along with sample scripts. I know in 75 minutes there is no way for you to type all this stuff out. I don't expect you to. But if you have, a Linux environment, if you have anything, interface that you can do bash in, we are in business. You can type along with this. You can download those scripts. They are available to you. They will be here. I'm not taking them down after Summit. So I'm hoping you can download this session even afterwards and work through it. I want this to be something you can take away. I didn't get to as much as I would have liked to. I would have liked to have gotten into notifications and things like that, but it's a start, and there will be more blog posts, I promise. So one way that I'm doing this is through the Azure Cloud Shell. If you have not worked with this, you can do a split screen from that button up in the top that most people are going, well, that's PowerShell. There's two command lines options for that. It will default for you probably to PowerShell. Excuse me, but if you go to the top of it, and I'm going to show it to you here real quick. Are you tired of following me back and forth across the stage? Okay, thought I'd ask. In the Cloud Shell, and this is directly in the Cloud Shell, if you click right up here, you got Bash or PowerShell. Mine pretty much stays always in Bash, but we'll also talk about this because some of you are going, so I'm going to have to switch and just write Bash. No, you don't. Thanks to a number of people that told me how stupid I am about PowerShell, I found out how to execute PowerShells inside Bash scripts. That made my life so much easier when I did not wish to reinvent the wheel for a script that was already written. There's no reason to do this. So one of the things that I'm hoping you will also take away from this is that you can build Bash wrappers, use some of the advanced utilities and commands inside Bash to then also deploy all your PowerShell scripts you may already have with small minor changes, which is really cool. I don't like people having to throw things away and not be able to use them. So that's kind of nice with this. And if you have any questions as we're going along, please feel free to interrupt. No problem whatsoever. Glad to answer them. If I don't see you on this side, I have no visual field over here, feel free to throw things at me. So I'm good. I'm good. Come back, slideshow. And I'll even get this on the right hand here. So how should you author your shell scripts? I am all about doing it right. If you do it wrong, it can have long-term issues. Any of you that work with PowerShell, you will see the same way. If you have to edit these, if you have to work with them later on, these suite of scripts can be your life. It is worth it to take a little bit of time, have templates, have a certain format that you're working with. I also believe that there is kind of an authorship, a kind of wording that you use. If we say to be or not to be, that is the question. Who is that? Yes. I have made most of my early career going around to other jobs in Denver, and they'd show me these corn shell scripts and go, these are my husband's. Worked out really well for me. Got a lot of jobs that way. But I understood just the way that it was written, I recognized it as the way that he would author a script. So understanding that and making it as simple to read and write and work with really makes a difference. There was also a certain author, a DBA, that was in town that I would see his scripts and I was like, oh, hell no. So, you don't want to be that person. Don't want to be that person. Even if you already know Bash, and do any of you work with Bash? I've got a couple of you. You can't even raise your hand, young man, so I know you know Bash. We got more Oracle DBAs in the room. It's good to consider this. These are good tips. You can take these into PowerShell as well as Bash. These are just best practices that I want people to understand and learn and hopefully help you out. These could save your life someday or save you from being killed by one of your coworkers, so definitely worth it. I believe in teaching how to write scripts the same way that you would be taught to write like a thesis paper. There is an introduction, there is a body, there is a conclusion. I break it into 3 very clear, distinctive parts. I think it's easier to work with, it's easier to write, it's easier to manage and edit, and of course, maintain later on. So we'll start with the introduction. So talk about the shell. Which shell do you use? If you're using bash versus, of course, there is C shell, there is corn shell. I am definitely, like I said, a corn shell person. I loved it. But yeah, bash is the default now. I need to convert. I understand the pressure. But you can type in a command called which bash, and it'll show you. It'll show you which bash, which is kind of nice. It tells you which shell, and it's going to give you that path. It's going to tell you what that path is. And by putting in that path, that tells the very beginning of your script, by putting that in the first line, what scripting language this script is being written in. And that's very helpful to have. If you don't, you pretty much, if it's not set up in your bash RC, which is your bash run commands, or your bash profile, which is your profile for your user, it will not know where that language is. It won't know by default that extension on that file, just like your environment variables in Windows. So you would have to type that out each time instead of just the script name, execute this script and any arguments or anything else that is required for it. You would have to type out bin, bash, name of the script, argument, all this stuff. It's extra typing. Who wants to type extra? You also can set up the ability, and this is to protect yourself. Let's say you decided you were going to remove a file, and you had a command in Linux. You would do rm, and you decided, I need to force this file. So you did -rf, and then it would have a directory /, and then you would fill in with an argument, an environment variable of $whatever, and it would populate that. Let's say that argument didn't actually come into play. Does anybody in here know what rm -rf / means? Because you're over here giggling, I know you do. You're over here scowling, so I know you do. Yeah, it's a bad thing. You just clear your hard drive. Yeah, it's not a good thing, absolutely. So you can set these parameters within the front of your script to kind of protect you from having these situations come up. It'll clean up your script. It'll make sure that none of the environment variables are set afterwards. And if there's any errors, anything that goes wrong in the script, it's going to exit out. And that's actually, I should say, the next slide for my undeclared variables. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. It's in my brain and not in my slides yet. So you can actually set it to unset your environment variables that were part of your script, as well as if something happens in your pipe fail, which we pipe in information as part of our arguments that we're filling in. If anything was to fail, then it would exit out again. And that's just to protect you. It's to protect you if something goes wrong. We can also add debugging to our script. Now this comes in very handy as we're learning how to script, because sometimes the errors aren't very clear. There may not be any errors at all, and we need to have some information. So it's very possible that you will see commented out, so there'll be a £sign in your script as somebody who is editing, creating that script, said a -X. You will see that, set -X. What's going on? They were trying to troubleshoot something, or they were debugging their script. There are options to do this in verbose mode, which means you would do a set -V, and then you could do the end, so it would do syntax checking. Is my syntax all right? Don't actually execute the script. Just check my syntax, tell me how it went, and then X, of course, to debug that and return that information to the screen. Another really good thing to do as you're scripting anything is lessen your typing. And you can lessen your typing by setting up your environment. There is a .bash RC that's always out there, your run command, and then you can have your .bash profile, which is your file. And you can set this up. This is just like your environment variables. And a bash RC, your run commands, and your profiles. This is for your user level. For a lot of applications that are logged in, how many of you have seen SQL Server for 2019 installed? So you've noticed that there's an MS SQL user and an MS SQL group. So that MS SQL user has its own bash RC and bash profile that is assigned to it. And you may have aliases that are set up to that saying, this is where the data location is. That actual path is all set in there with a shortcut that you can use to get to it. It may not be set up for your own personal user, though. You may log in as yourself, Jay Jones, and you may not be able to see it. So you may want to have that yourself. You can set that up in your own profile, and then you wouldn't have to type in the entire path. You would know where it is. And so you could say change directory, CD, dollar, that actual variable, and it would go to it. So it saves you a little bit of typing. If your environment variables, your aliases that you're building are longer than the actual path, probably not doing them right though. Make sure they're shorter, make it easier for you, of course. But this cuts down on a lot of significant writing, and you can use them in all your scripts. If that profile, that bash RC is being executed for that user, you could just populate them out. That setting is already there, and then you can just use that in your scripts as it goes down, as long as it knows that that bash RC is being executed as part of it. Does that make sense? Are you like, Kellen, slow down, this is such a different world for us, stop. Let me know if I need to slow down, definitely. I think it'll make sense as we start to get in this. So I believe in having headers in a script. This information should not be a junk load of data that makes no sense for the actual reader or the person maintaining these scripts. It should have the information of the title for the script, the purpose of the script, the author, and any definitive notes that are needed to maintain it, telling people, this script needs to be updated this time, or it was updated this last date, or we just added a new piece into it, some vital information. You can put it all in pound signs. I like doing a border around it because it highlights and makes it very clear this is a comment. This is the defined block. It comes in after we've set our shell. We've always set our shell, and usually if we're doing any debugging or anything else, we put that at the very top. This comes afterwards. When passing these environment variables, we can do them in a number of different ways. One of the things that I noticed when I was pulling the ARM templates from Azure is that most of it is hard-coded in. They are JSON, and everything that you're pulling from the ARM templates are fantastic artifacts. They're really great for like DR. You're trying to recover those environments and you want to recreate them. Awesome. Not so good for DevOps. You'd like something more dynamic. So I'm going to show you as we go through these scripts how to put something in hard-coded, how to do something dynamically, how to do something interactively. And I'm hoping that'll help you because I think these are the most common steps that we go through as we mature our scripts in Bash. Make sense? So when would you do each one? Hard coding, I kind of give you the pros and cons on this. Hard coding is nice because you're hoping you get no typos. If it actually executes, you did it right. If it fails, you did it wrong. It's static, no interaction. It's harder to reuse it, of course. Pass during the execution. This is, of course, more interactive. You got people that are actually putting things in. It asks them for those prompts, and you have to answer those questions for those environment variables that are needed as part of this. Can suffer typos, or maybe somebody forgets what they typed in. They thought they typed in one thing, and it's already gone on the screen, and they can't see it anymore from the execution of the script. Interactively read as part of the execution. Again, you can have some typos in there. It's making sure that they're prompted with hints are really nice too. I have a tendency to do this because I'm working with customers that even though I'm having them execute these really complex shell scripts, they're not that technical themselves. This was a really easy way when I was working with my customers for them to just download, execute the scripts, and it deployed everything. It would ask them simple questions, and at the end, I would give them back a text file that says, this is what you actually typed in, this is what you got. It works really nice. And I ask them very clearly, okay, you have to give me a 4-character acronym, and I'm going to use that to name all your resources with. So I was really good about trying to give them very definitive information about the answer they were going to give me, so they gave me the best answer. Generated values. The nice thing about this is, let's say you are going to deploy a whole bunch of servers and no one's going to need to know about it, or actually a virtual network and a subnet. Nobody needs to know this. This is kind of behind the scenes infrastructure. They're not going to need to know this. So I may take that acronym for the servers and add some other extensions on it and dynamically generate those. And my customer doesn't even need to know about it. The person who's going to be working on that database doesn't know about it. This is just the behind the scenes stuff. So I may push 2 values together and add an extension on it and say, we're good. You don't even need to care. So this is what my start of my script will look like with our beginning. This here, and you'll see up at the top right, The name of the script I'm working with right now, if you've downloaded from GitHub, this is what it is. The Summit demo, it's the initial script. And you can see that I've started by setting my actual shell, which of course is bash. And it's going to be confusing for a lot of people because you're like, that starts with a comment outline. How does that work? Don't worry about it. The comment bang, and that's what you'll hear from most of us in the Linux world. We will say bang. Do they say Linux or do they say bang with PowerShell too? Thank you. I don't know that, and Robs will tell you I don't get PowerShell. I'm really sad. So pound bang and then /bin/bash. We start with that to set our shell. I then make my comments, set up my header there to say what the script is for. It's all inside pound. So it says these are just comments. This is information, vital information for my script. And then I start setting my environment. Export the actual value name for my, my variable equals, and then put the actual information that I want it, what I want it to equal. Now what this means from this point on, and these can be as complex, anything that I want, anytime that I type in $dir_name from that point on, it will equal Summit dir. Does that make sense? Sounds the same as PowerShell on that one, I'm sure. Yeah, we're all good there. So how I will use these, as I was saying, dir name becomes $dir name. File name becomes $file name. And you can make these any way that you want. You know, there's don't have the real concerns. There are some, of course, reserved words, but this is pretty much how this works as we go along. These can be put into your bash RC and your bash profile, and you can even set up other profiles that are executed in there if you have specific applications. I many times had multiple databases, like maybe I'd have a MySQL and an Oracle database on the same server, and at the end of the Oracle login, it would execute a profile for that Oracle database. So I'd have like 10G_profile. And then for MySQL, I'd have MySQL_profile. When I logged in as a MySQL user, it would execute the other profile. That way, the actual environment was set up for that application and served it best. Make sense? We're good. It's very similar to how Windows does it on the other side, just through the actual GUI and everything. The next step we would do is to move from hard coding to passing those variables into the execution. But I want to run this first script as we've been working with this and see if I got reconnect. Yep. That's the only thing I don't like about this, is that the timeout on it is set a little too low for me. So to execute this, now it says, I can't do that because I didn't clean up my directory. And you're going to see me do something and say, Kellen. Nobody tell anybody I did that. And if you notice, I can just hit up arrow and I'm going right back to where I was. Okay, so in our script there, if we look at it, oops. Hello, there it goes. This is all my script is actually doing. We're jumping in here, and we'll go through the body and everything else. We're just kind of fighting in, and you'll see this as we're working through these. We're going to do a lot with the introduction first. But all of these are going to have the same body and stuff. It isn't until the very last script that we're going to start talking about that conclusion and cleaning up and how functions work, which are really nice, and I'll show you why you're doing that. But notice that we actually export the dir name, we export the file name, the log name, create new directory. You can see I'm just doing make dir, $dir name, touch the file name, touch the log name. I just want it to do this. And I also want you to notice that you'll see touch $ curly bracket file name works just as easy as touch $log name. The reason that you use curly brackets is usually because you have another path, so there's a slash and other things added to it. But I wanted you to see that even though I didn't have anything there, I could use one or the other. So you need that curly bracket when you are extending that line. but just to give you a little feel of that. So notice that's up in the make dir. See, $, curly bracket, dir name. And that just keeps it a little bit, it helps the actual script understand what you're trying to do, what you're trying to accomplish, and not get confused by your commands. Same thing up here. File name equals $dir name with curly bracket / summit list. And then I went in and did something called PWD. PWD, first thing you think of is password, isn't it? That's what I always thought. I was like, what? It actually means the directory, current directory that I'm in. So PWD, what is that directory? List it, and it does a redirect. Takes that information, writes it to that file. Reason I'm doing this and showing you this is a good way of starting to understand how we can log things. You're going to go out there and you're going to say, how do I get information from a file? And you're going to start to see things like cat and grep and these other commands and awk and sed, which we'll do a little bit with, not a lot. I don't want to burn your brains out today because you've only been in how many sessions in the last 2 days? So yeah, but this is telling you you can write things very easily. And the one below it, notice that the log name, I've done 2 redirects. Now, what I'm showing you in the first one here, for the first log name, right, is that even though I say append, that's what it is, the 2 carets are, instead of just write, if I had done 1, it would write to the file new. Whatever was in it, it would rewrite over it, okay? By 2, I'm still writing to it, but it's thinking, if there's anything in there, I'm going to save it, and I'm going to write to the end. I'm going to append it. And the second one, it definitely appends to. It says, oh, I've got 1 line in there. I'm going to the next line. So this is to start having you think about how you're logging in an actual Linux script. Does that make sense? You guys are like, yeah, I've got this. Like I said, very, very simple script. The next step that we will go through, now that we've done that, is we will move to hard coding those in. And I'm not real crazy about this. I find that this may be good for one time you're doing this, but I'm all about using scripts over and over again. So, slideshow, here we go. My poor little machine is like, please stop doing this to me. You're doing this, you're passing these values from the session login. It's part of the script execution. So you execute the script, and then you tell it that I want to pass the values as part of the execution. So it's the next 2 characters. I'm not as crazy about this, I have to admit, but it's something that a lot of DBAs utilize. And they might schedule this. So who knows about the scheduler in a Linux box? You guys know cron? Yeah, so a lot of times you will use that. Of course, there's schedulers outside of it and many other choices, but the Linux DBAs, Oracle DBAs, we live by our crons. That's where it's all there. But same thing here is that we would actually do this, and you see it. I export my variables, I tell it what I want, and I may actually put these values right in there. What do I got here on this one? Sorry, I'm looking at this going, where did I jump on this one? I may have jumped the shark suddenly. See, or add the script to the section.
You lost me on what is export when you type export.
Oh, export, it's also in other Unix flavors set. And by export, it says set this in my actual environment variables. You could make a variable outside an interactive session and you're doing it once versus export saying add this to my environment variables for this session that I'm in, and it will then retain it.
Because you set up an environment variable before by just typing dir name equals.
Yes, but it may not hold it for an actual script. Yeah, so you need it for that. So then, and that's what I'm saying. So we would export these values out, and then we would call them. And I'm not real crazy about how this script is looking. I must have been paying attention in Anthony's Kubernetes session when I wrote this slide. I apologize to you. But I'm going to rewrite that and re-upload these. Because what we're looking for is that the path of the execution file would be the script and then $1, and you would enter in that value to say this is what that actual value should be, and it passes that in the script. I want to see what the script says. There we go. Export acro equals $1, and then it would pass it back in. So I'm really sorry. That sucks. I don't like that. And then I am passing in here. I wanted you guys to see this where it's doing an expert dir name, acro, dir name. Because I changed this, and I'm not just saying create this directory, and I'm making them more complex. See how I've switched it up? So I'm saying I just want this one little value, so I had to change everything else so it's building it as it goes along from multiple values, the one I set before and the one I'm setting now. So really think about as you're doing this and why you would set debug in some of these scripts to make sure that you're not tripping up on your environment variables as you set it in one place and make sure that you unset it in other places. So some of these can come back to kick you just like this one here. And this is usually my favorite one, and this is what we're going to talk about, and I'm going to text through. Passing dynamic values in a script. It's a multi-step process, and this is one of the things that I took from the ARM templates. I didn't like how they were doing it. It was still extremely static with the JSON files, that it would pass in the values as a static value, and I wanted to ask questions. My customers were already having problems deploying Azure on-premise and being able to find all the places in the portal to click. Do I need a subnet with my VNet in a virtual network? Do I need Azure Data Factory? I wanted to get rid of all of that from them. So one of the things that I would do is I would just ask them questions and it would do everything else for them. So I would come in and tell them what the usage is. I would say, okay, I'm going to first tell my script, I'm going to be asking a lot of questions. I'm going to let you just know that. So it says usage, and it says the usage, what my values are. So I'm going to add these in. My minus F, it's going to be the file name. Minus L is the log name. And then I'm saying, this is the end of it. I'm done. Now exit. That's what it's looking for. And if it doesn't have any of those, get out of there. And then I say, declare that file name. And I leave it blank because they're going to submit those. It's going to ask them for those values. And that customer, that person that's executing it, is going to type them in. So that's what I'm doing next. And it would do that for each one of these. And you're going to see it starts getting a little more complicated as we go along with this. The next is to initialize those parameters. And I actually write this in. You can see I put a comment up there because I don't want any confusion for somebody who's actually working with the script. And I say, while get those options for the F and the L. Remember we did that in this last one up here? The F, minus F, and the minus L. So we're going to do that. We're going to grab F and the L, grab the arguments, and then do. And then it says, here's my arguments. And I go in and I say, file name is going to equal what I ask them. You're going to put that in there. And then the next one's going to, same thing, optional arguments, what it's grabbing. And then that's all I'm going to do. And then I say, I'm done. Okay, understand that. So I've let the shell script know that's what I'm about to do. Now I pass them in. I say, if I ask for the file name, then I do an echo. And by echo, and this is really fun when you're doing scripting, echo is just like print. You know, I'm just saying echo what I want inside quotes, and I put it down there. So I'm saying echo, type in the name of your file, and it'll bring that back to the screen before it gives a space or an actual prompt for that customer to type in the answer. So it says read whatever he types in that answer, which is going to be the file name. And then I say, what is the file name? Enter that in. That's going to be that value now. And I do the same for log name. And I say, okay, we're done with that one. Go to the next one. Say log name, then type in your log name. And it says read the log name. Brings it in, and that feeds it in for the log name value. So this is very interactive, and that's what you're going to see. So what does that do? So if you were to look, any of you that edit or brought up that screen, I'm telling you it's the Summit Demo Dyn, D-Y-N shell script. You can take a look at that one. Ta-da. And you'll see this one's much longer than the other ones. We've exported our dir name. I already put that up there because I want them to know we're going to the Summit dir. I'm putting it in a new directory because we've already written to the other one. I don't want it to say, well, that directory already exists, just so you know that. I set my declarations here. You can see that. Here's what we were talking about. Declare that. And then I'm going to go in and start my arguments. I'm going to ask my questions here. And then I say, I'm done. Go on. And that's when I start asking these questions. Type in the name of your file. Type in the name of your log, just like we were showing there. And now I get to do the same steps that I did before. Now, it seems like a lot more scripting, but remember, you can reuse this over and over again in other places. That's the nice thing about this is that you can take that code, move it to other places, reuse it, and it's very valuable. So how does this script look? And I'm going to use my up key, show you that I'm saving some type in here, maybe. What is the name of my file? I'm going to say, what is it? Summit 1. Tip the name of my log, Summit log. And of course, what did I do? Summit dir, Summit 1. Oh, and because I changed it for their Mike dir, I thought it was the other way around. This is because I edited my scripts when I shouldn't have. One. There we go. Please.
So that error, the no such file, that's just coming from the OS.
No, it's from the script because,
Fetching that.
yep, I updated my scripts and it should have said Summit dir 1. It was the opposite problem. So I want to write to the same directory. So if I change my directory CD to Summit dir and I do an ls, there's my files. And if we open up these files, you'll see what it did. There it is. There's my pwd command. I asked about it. I said, for that value, what is the directory? What is the actual name for that path? And it grabbed it and wrote it to the file. And now I look at this one, the Summit log, and there is the actual, I went and grabbed that and just said, you know, ls minus la for that file, tell me what it is, write it to this log. Okay, now append it and write an ls minus la for the actual Summit log name. I did this file name and then the Summit log name and just wrote that to it. And that's all I'm doing. Like I said, I wanted to keep the scripts as simple as possible. I want you guys mostly to see what it's capable of doing and that you, because you can Google any of these commands of how to, you know, do something you want to do. I want to go through this file and pull some information. You'll be able to see that. But to have that template of this is how you properly write a bash script is what I'm hoping you'll take away from this. Yep. Please, Chris. Absolutely, sir.
There's just one part, like, I'm not getting.
And I need to go up a directory. You know, I shouldn't actually be on a Linux machine, just kidding. Really? Really? How far do we have to go up? There we go. This script here.
On the very bottom,
I can do a Shift G. There's also a cheat sheet for a Vi that's out there in that GitHub repository. So if you want to learn it, yes.
in the curly brackets, where you have like home and then directory name, are those keywords or are they like little variables you've already set?
Yep, it's set. So see the ls minus ltr, it's saying do a list in reverse order from it's showing you the most recent file. And it says, give me the information on that log file. If there is more than one, it would grab all of them in that order and it would write it. See, we only have 2 files, so
So like home and username, these are little variables.
log file. And where we grabbed those was here. So we end up saying the usage, we want a file name and a log name. We declare it, we leave it empty because we're going to ask the questions later on. And we say, we declare it as kind of twice. You do F, and then we say F and L, they're actually going to be file name. So you see the F right here, and then the file name. That's what the F is for. And then we go down here and say, okay, now that we're here, if file name exists, we've asked for the file name, which is yes, we did. We prompt the customer and say, or the person executing the script and say, type in the name of your file. They read whatever the customer has written in at that point, at the prompt. Yep, and then make that the file name. And that finishes that one. And then it goes on to the next one. Yep. Like I said, these are all out on GitHub. You can tear them apart, do whatever you want with them too. Yep. Oh, of course. Oh, I had changed right here. When I wrote these, like I said, I was in Anthony's session when I was like, I can do this. And I made the mistake of making this Summit DIR. It should have been Summit DIR 1. Yep, this is my mistake when I copied the scripts over. I'm not as smart as I think I am. I really am not. Yeah.
So that right there is where
It erred.
it erred. So
See, if I replace this, or I appended this and put in a 1, it would have worked.
so you could have put some other error handling in there where it would caught that. So
Oh, it did, yeah, and it errored out. I could have also put in there, remember we were showing in the debug and the error and the exit if any errors? Could have added that in there, and it would have errored out. Yep, exactly. And it still errored. They're simple scripts. Yep, and if we look at view, and you'll see where this actually failed. Demo int.sh. Whoops. Check this one out. See what that says? Export dir name. The other one was Summit dir 1. That's where I screwed up. They should both say Summit dir 1. And for some reason in my brain, I had gone through there and taken it to Summit dir. I felt I needed to write to another directory. And I think it's in the cleanup script that I was doing that. So this is how we learn. This is how we learn. Does that answer everybody's questions so far? Please. Can you ask that question again?
if you call that shell the Summit Demo 9 and you pass the F and L immediately in, will it not then prompt for those interactively?
I don't know if I've ever done that. As far as I know, it's still going to come back and ask that question, so it needs to be in that script. So I would expect it to ask it. I've not set it up so that it's expecting it to be asked at the line. So I would think it would fail. Yeah, it was like it would return it at the end and go, I don't know what to do with this. Yeah, so that's what my logic would say if I'm thinking out loud. Yep, please.
So when you execute that script, obviously you have permissions. There are some things you have to do like SCH mode to make it
Yeah.
and execute there. How does that?
So I just did an ls minus LTR. It's the same as that's in there. And by doing an ls, let me show you if I just do a list. Notice the difference there between that and the last comment I put in, or the last command I put in. This is just showing all the files. Here it showed me all the files and information in it, and in fact sorted them by oldest file to newest file. And I can do the same thing. I can just do LA, which is what most people do. I don't know why it's always in my head. I think it's being a DBA. I want to see the most recent file. So I always do ls minus LTR. But if you look at this, it will tell you permissions. And a number of us have Linux talks, and I know I've done it. I've done Linux talks a long time for folks. And actually teaching Linux, I do an 8-hour pre-con session at a lot of the SQL Saturdays where I take you all through this and how permissions work. But the first line here is your directory. Is it a directory or not? No, this is not a directory. This is a file. Read, write, execute, and this is on the owner of the file, okay, which is Kellen on this first one. Next one is read, write, execute for the group. That's Kellen, that second one. Next one is other, and that's read. They do not have any write or execute. That tells you the permissions. This has a numerical calculation as well as the letter ones you're seeing here. And of course, my brain is going blank on which is which, or what the actual term is for it. But if I wanted to do this, I wanted to change this, and let me show you how this works. Change mod, so change modify, file name, Summit, demo, and we'll use the int again, sh, and that's this one right here. And I'm going to do 777. Except I didn't do it right. This is what happens when you've been here for a week. Your brain turns to mush. Okay, so change mod, the actual permissions, by 777. So these each have a value. So you got 421, 421. That's how each of these go. So, of course, equals 7. So you can make these calculations. So if you look at this now and go, da, da, da. See how this has changed? Still not a directory, can't turn it into a directory. But all of a sudden now, this says read, write, execute, read, write, execute, read, write, execute. I can change this now, come back up here. And again, this goes back into a full Linux session. Let's say I do 4.4. Look how it changed. Now the other, or the group and the others can only read it. They can't execute on it. They can't write to it. Changes the permissions. So that gives you control over this, change mod. There's also another option to change owner. And I'm not going to do that here because, yeah, there's not much out here. But, no. There's not much on your, they give you very limited permissions on your Azure Cloud Shell. It's you and only you. You know, you're a god unto yourself, which is kind of fun, but yeah. But change mod, C-H-M-O-D, or I'm sorry, change owner, C-H-O-W-N-E-R. And then you could put the new owner : new group, and you can change the owner in the group for the file as well. We do this a lot, especially you have the rights to do it as root or something, or you've done it for the wrong user and you want to change everything over. I do this all the time. I'm like, should have done this as the application owner, you know, so comes in very handy. And you'll also hear a lot, and if you were in Hamish's session yesterday, he did a lot with sudo, which gives you power that you've been granted over super user domain owner. But again, we're getting into kind of Linux classes. Are you going to cover some of this tomorrow? Yeah, that's what I thought. So, see, got to go to Randolph's session. He'll go into all this stuff a lot deeper. So, does that answer a lot of questions? We're going forward. How are we doing on time? Oh my God, how'd time go that fast? So, but definitely feel free coming up afterwards too. We'll talk. Yes. Yes. Vim, I actually, in fact, I think it's, did I put, yeah. Save your file, escape, :qbang in Vim, Vi. I'm older school, so we still say VI, Vi, but Vim is what you're actually installing when you're on a Linux machine. It's all the same, dude, still. I'm old. Yeah, I'm old. Yeah. I worked on HPUX and AIX. The joke when I was at Oracle that I had the Island of Misfit projects, which meant I got AIX, HPUX, and Windows. Nobody wanted to touch Windows. And then at the end, it was Solaris too. So, everybody's like, I just want to do Linux. So that was my world. So we're pretty good? Did I get everybody? Feel free, like I said, throw something at me. I'll throw stuff back, though. I will. And look, I went over it. There we go. So as you're downloading scripts from GitHub, you may notice that you do not have execution privileges. This is where I come in here. Change mod 744. Star is your wildcard, of course. .sh, that means all our shell scripts. That's me telling you that's how you change these to so that you can execute them. And if you're setting any of your environment variables and everything, you can test them. So if you're going, did it actually set my environment variable? You can go echo $ and the environment name. It's going to give you that value back. So that's kind of a nice way to say, did I actually do what I was supposed to do? You can do these, like I said, the export, the actual environment variable equal and the value. It will set those two interactively. This isn't just in scripts. You can do this wherever. So we get into the body here. We were talking about what we were doing with this. This script is really, really easy, but when we start talking about what we're doing inside the body, it talks about this is where we put the meat of our script. This is where we put a lot of our debugging, our every piece, including writing to some of our log files, all of that. And the nice thing about it is that this was when we start building towards functions. Why functions are important, why functions makes it easier for you to manage scripts, to troubleshoot scripts. So I kind of want you to start thinking about that too. Try not to leave people in the dark. Put comments in your scripts as you're working through them. I have a tendency to put comments that say, ooh, I really want to add this in my next enhancement. Oh, I want to add this here, or this does this right now, but I think it'll be better there. What happens is that other people will be in working with my scripts and they'll, Kellen, I know how to do that. And it gets them collaborating with me, which I really, really appreciate because I may not have the time to improve that script, and it lets people think through and help me make them better. So you will see, you can see I've got that comment there. This builds the step of the database logical objects. If the variables aren't entered, the script will exit. I never wanted anybody guessing about my scripts, and I did. My favorite DBA to work with would always say, Kellen, your scripts, make the world go round, but I just can't do it. It's not for me. Make it clear what your goal is of your script. And this one here, it's to create a directory, touch an empty file. So you can, via file, view a file, it'll create it. Touch a file creates an empty file. So use a touch. And then confirm our directories. And we were talking about this. We're writing, and we can append, but also the append will write as well. So I wanted you guys to see that. And then this is our actual directory, or your actual body that you've been seeing in every single one of these scripts. We're not really changing these. Also, don't make users guess. This is what I love about interactive scripting, is that for people that are working with my scripts, I like to ask them questions. If you've ever, for one of them for me was deploying an analysis services in Azure. It comes back and says something about put in the, I'm trying to remember, the management user for the console or something like that. And it really, all it wants is your Azure Active Directory login. But nobody's ever going to know that. So I added an echo into there with what it needs to have in there. It's really confusing because somebody might put in MS admin, I don't know. Try to give people prompts of knowing what is there so they can be successful with your scripts. I even put suggestions for passwords and tell them what the naming convention is for a password. I deploy a lot of POCs. I've got a hardening script that'll secure it later on. I don't want them guessing. I don't want them having it fail and they have to redeploy. So I'm going to try to make them as successful as possible. And again, don't throw away stuff you've already done. If you have PowerShell scripts, you can use this. This is a scripting language. So if you have great PowerShell scripts, it's there in Linux. Use them too. A lot of the functionality is becoming more and more advanced, and I know Randolph's going to go through that in his session. So don't throw it away. If you've got options for Perl, Java, any of this stuff, you can use this. For me and my scripts that I'm doing, like I said, I'm deploying from end to end. So I am doing the infrastructure, I'm doing database servers, I'm doing Azure DevOps. I'm plugging it all in. I was not one that was saying I'm just giving the infrastructure and then handing the server off to, a server admin or a DBA. I had to do it end to end so that my customers didn't need to worry about this. And now we get into functions. What's nice about functions is that you can group commands together. They don't actually execute until you list the function name. It says this block of code, you're not actually going to execute unless I list the function, which I do later on. You can write them in any order you want also. So although I don't recommend having them all over the place inside the body of your script, if you put them all over the place, they're only going to actually deploy in the order of the name of the function you put down at the end. I consider the execution of functions in the conclusion, not in the body. I use it a lot of times for testing, especially if you have a really long script. Let's say you've got a script that's 8,000 lines, and you can think about troubleshooting, or let's say you need to just test a block of it. Think about having a command comment out all of that. Forget it. Functions is the way to go. So this is an example of just an example of a function. The function name, the function name, curly brackets, your code, and then out of it. And you can see these are actually 3 functions. So function name, function name, curly bracket, the command, curly bracket. And you can do the code as long as you want. You can put it inside that block. So this is how our functions look. Name the first one, touch_func. And I know I am an Oracle DBA. I will use underscore instead of the dash. Terrible. It's just me. So I'm saying function, touch_function, curly bracket, what I want it to do, curly bracket, close it. So that's my function. If I were to run that script just like that, it wouldn't do anything. It's a function, I haven't called it. I've just coded it. 2 different things. Then my second function, again, then I'm doing the next steps. What are my directories? What do I want to write to my files? And I'm doing all of that again. And then I also, oh, please. The definition is still up in the introduction. Yep, I'm going to leave that exactly the same. The body is where I'm writing the functions, and then the execution of those functions I put in the conclusion and then my cleanup. Please. Same way. I could do PWD, put in that, that environment variable, and it will give me that information. Is that what you asked for? Yes? Say that again. Oh, you were in that directory. Yeah. What I'm asking for there is to say PWD and that value, and it's going to return that value. So if I say PWD for this path, it's going to return that path. Yeah. Yeah. That's all I'm asking for. I'm trying to show different, just different, something to do in that script without making it too complicated that it would fail if somebody had their own Linux system. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. But you're like going, why would you ever do that? Yeah. It's just to do something inside the script. No question about it.
So one thing that's important to think of is you were just explaining export.
Yeah.
Export will go into a function if you export the variable. If you don't export the variable,
It's going to fail.
the variable, it's internal to the function. It
Yeah.
won't go outside of the function.
Yeah.
So that's the big difference. You might want local variables, so that's why you might do that.
And it'll allow you more advanced scripting, of course, too, as you're doing that. I'm not one to like to reuse variables, too. I have a lot of people who go, oh, it meant this in this script, and it doesn't mean it in that script, and it's like, oh my gosh, I can't do that. I try to keep them the same.
Does it matter if you kind of put some tabs in your function, or it has to be all lined up?
No, you can put tabs in it, absolutely.
It's not like Python.
No, you don't, where tab is different than 4 spaces. Yeah, no, it's not like that. No. You're good. You're good. And then I added one more, and I joke about this. The RM minus RF, the $dir name, again, if you had like just slash or something, yeah, it could be really, really bad. Think about that. So, but I wanted to talk about that because, there's a lot of guys that go out on the support sites, and somebody will ask a simple question, a help question. They'll come back and go, oh, just type in RM minus RF slash. Yeah, you're helpful. Yeah, no, we don't do that. So here's where our conclusion is, where we type in our actual function names. I add the last of the logging steps, I put up my cleanup steps, and if you want to do email files, notifications, I didn't get to that piece. There just wasn't enough time to teach that in this shorter session. We're already pushing it here. So I wanted to, definitely do that, but that's what I would do in these steps. And so my conclusion, that's when I say execute my functions and clean up, and I say, here's my function names. Write log func. And if I wanted to do the cleanup, I could do that as well. Now let's say I'm testing and I just want it to write to the log. I don't want it to clean up. All I have to do is put a £, comment out that clean func. It's not going to run. Doesn't matter if the code's written in there or not. So think about how helpful this is. If you got this really long script and you only want to test one little block of it, you could have that inside a function and test that, but I have all the other stuff already written. So this makes it really easy for us to maintain and manage. Maybe there's just a one-off weird situation. You're like, oh, I only need to run this one step in the script. You can utilize this. So this is very, very beneficial. And then notify. I am very much against white noise. Anybody who's followed me on my enterprise manager side in the Oracle, the product for Oracle sent you everything in the kitchen sink. So I made my living for a while just showing people how to shut it all off. If it's an error, log it, notify if it's critical. If it's not, log it and keep it quiet so people can just read it when they need to. So, think about what you're sending when you're actually sending successes. If it's just going to be ignored and then when an actual error comes up, you're like, oh, that's more white noise. It can cause you just as much grief. And then decide what you want to do with that actual error information when you want to send it in. And then executing is easy. And if we're going to look at this one here with the functions, of course it knocked me out again. At least it's not trying to do it with my packet script. We finished the book, so it won't try to log in with that anymore. But one of my customers are there. Cool. Let's see, dir, and we want func.sh. My file will do summit2. Type the name of my log, summit2 log. Script is completed, so I am bringing back an echo saying my script's completed now. Just gives me an interactive information from that. I do this, and I go summit dir. Well, actually, see, if I do ls minus ltr again, it'll also tell me where I wrote to last. And I go change summit dir 1. My file right there. What time is it again? Boy, is this thing off. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, this is... I didn't write anything to that one. Interesting. Yeah, this isn't my files. Where did it write? Thank you. Let me see where it... Am I looking right at it? I'm glad you guys are paying attention. I'm horrible. There we go. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, my left side visual field, it'll be saying, I can't find something. And I'll be like, I don't see it. So, cool. Thank you. But the nice thing is, as we comment this out, now if I go in there, it's our func. And I want to come back out of that directory. It's the only problem I hate out of this. And if I go down here, let me shift G so I go down to the bottom, and I take this out, now it will do anything. That's why it didn't write to it. Now we'll do all our stuff. I was trying to demonstrate to you that it wouldn't write. We already know that. We checked the files. Okay. Now I do it again. Summit. We'll do summit3 log. And then it fails because what did I get rid of? Summit dir. This is what I get for changing my script. What? Oh, come on. No, I didn't. We're all right. I'm still at home. Say, good job, Kellen. You didn't screw it all up. 3, summit3 log. Is it summit dir 1? What did I do? Do I get to go home after this? I thought we made this one. Oh, because I cleaned it up. Does someone else want to come up here and type? Yeah, I'm not doing so good. Yeah. Maybe yours will work. Did its job. That's it. Stop with the slash, Kellen. I will tell you straight out on this. So I have an iPad Pro, and I have this, and the key on the iPad Pro is so much better. Don't tell Microsoft I said this than this one. I constantly am hitting 2 keys at a time. It's like, ah! The typos are just killing me. Let's do this the right way. Is this starting to make sense, though? Are we all right? Okay. because I want this to be helpful. And like I said, all of these scripts are out there. I'm going to stop editing it. If I take the clean funk out of there, it's going to go right to it, and then it won't remove the files. There we go. So you guys have that. Because I know we're running out of time here. I don't want to keep you guys too long because I know there's some great other sessions too. So, back up. So testing out these scripts, there are some awesome stuff that you will see if you go out to the other GitHub directories are out there. I use a lot with awk and grep and sed. This is probably the biggest battle between Rob Sewell and I. I know PowerShell treats everything as an object, and I want to pull everything into an array, massage that data, and pull it back in. But yeah, I can do a lot with these. And so you'll see that a lot of times in my script, doing filtering and grabbing file information and pulling it back and forth. And just, I pull everything from the Azure catalog. Pretty much no matter what anybody does to me in the Azure catalog, I don't have to worry about it, whatever they change dynamically, because I'm pulling it in all the time that way. Summary-wise, Learn, Vi, Vim, VI, whatever you want to call it there. Nano and other editors are great, but it does give you cred to know this. Once you get your fingers down and get used to it, your fingers never leave the keyboard. It is definitely worth that time. Use those best practices. Feel free to grab these kind of best practices. They're good no matter what you're in. PowerShell, Linux, Bash scripting, and use dynamic variables. Make your code reusable. It's worth your time and effort. And use those exit codes and the debug options as you first start so that when you have errors like I did that you saw in here, you don't end up searching for it like I did. If you want to know more, I have a lot of blog posts on this. I also did the 24-hop, the 24 hours of pass. And my first session there was to supplement this session because this is a lot to go through in like 75 minutes, and there's a lot there to help. It'll tell you how to set up your bash.rc, to add colors, take colors out. There's all kinds of stuff there. And there's an edX class, web tutorials, and a scripting class that I've added on here that's online to help you out as well. Any other questions before we depart? You guys are like, no. We're ready for lunch. Thank you. Thank you so much.